Flashes of memory.
I was roommates with a serial killer, and I had no idea until a couple of days ago. I should have fucking known. He took trips up to his camp almost every weekend, even over the past few months, and if you ask anyone from CNY, they'll tell you how cold it is. I suppose looking back on it now, one night should have pointed to who my roommate really was. It was early September. I just graduated from high school last June, so I was excited to start college. I decided to live on campus, and on September 4th, that's when I met Jim, my roommate. Jim was 22. He hasn't attended college until now. He lived off the fat of his land, his weed crop up north, for a few years. Jim seemed like a cool guy. He and I both loved going to the gym. He was an absolute monster in the weight room. He looked like your average pseudo-powerlifter built like a brick shithouse. But Jim was always a very quiet and sweet guy. I can't be around weed, medicine interaction. So when he would smoke, he would risk his own ass and smoke out in the back of the dorm. Now, throughout the whole first semester, Jim was still a great guy, but he did end up growing some new negative qualities. I'm not saying he became a bad person, but was instead adapting to his environment. After he and I went to our first college parties, he had strung together a group of 4 girlfriends, and none of them knew about each other. He was such a good liar, and I'm not talking about just very convincing, but if I hadn't seen all the girls with my own eyes, I would have believed that the girl of the night was his one and only. Then came Halloween. I came back to my dorm room around 11:30 after being at another friend's costume party to find Jim crying in bed. It was weird. I don't think he never showed this much emotion before, so I obviously asked him what was wrong, and he told me that one of the girls, Jessica, was just found with no hands or feet inside a cornfield people used to go hang out at. I felt horrible. I decided I was going to try to make him feel better, so I ran into our bathroom to wash my face quick, but when I got in there, I could have sworn I saw Jim grinning ear to ear as I left the room. Due to some privacy reasons, I will only tell you about Jessica. The press release that was let out was horrific. She had been found with her hands and feet cut off, with what looked like a serrated saw. They also found corn husks shoved down her throat. Some pretty sick shit. Jim was never the same after Jessica's death. He started to completely skip his classes, drank heavily, spent insane amounts of time at the gym, and went up to his camp in the Adirondacks almost every weekend. This was also around the same time that the disappearances started to happen. It started with a young professor's aide. She had been walking her dog in her neighborhood not too far from campus when she went missing. They found her dog hanged by her leash on the aide's door. Then 3 women that were bar hopping in downtown Syracuse disappeared. They found one of the woman's lip ring in the parking lot of the bar they were last seen. Then came possibly the most disturbing one. A pregnant woman was attacked and kidnapped from her own apartment in Pulaski. The only thing left at the scene was a handwritten note. "I'm your baby's daddy now." A silent manhunt was on in my area. The biggest connection I should have made was after I told Jim that a group of 25 people said they would search every inch of upstate New York to find the pregnant woman. Jim began to be very paranoid and jumpy. His nice demeanor began to fade. He was just so angry all the time. Things came together about a week and a half ago. It was Friday night and Jim hadn't left yet, which was weird. Turns out that he was so blazed out of his mind he had forgotten to leave. When he did go, I felt bad for letting him leave, but now I'm glad I did. The next morning, a woman was found dead face down near a gas station. There was blood everywhere. The woman had her tongue ripped out of her throat. But there was a silver lining. The idiot who did this left bloody footprints that led to a gas station bathroom, and you'll never guess who was in the bathroom. Jim has been in custody for about 5 days. He admitted to nearly every single murder he committed, his first having been on his 20th birthday. Police raided his camp upstate and found a real-life horror house. Women's bodies were nailed to the wall as trophies. He even turned 2 of them into fucking sex dolls. The sick fuck even bought a crib for... well, you know. Now how do I know all this? The police have only told immediate family what has happened. But luckily I know a few officers, plus they felt obligated to show me something. You see, Jim kept a journal at his camp, mostly describing all of his murders. But one entry, from Halloween 2014, stood out. This is what it read. Jessica found my kit in my trunk. It's a shame I had a great spot for her. Made sure that nobody knew that she was going out with me. When police found her, I feigned tears for Dom. He's a great guy, easy to manipulate. But I'm still counting the days until he finally gets a girlfriend. I have never before been so happy to be single. Something terrifying happened on my honeymoon. I'm not married anymore. I'll never know why it happened. That's something I have to accept. The falls have a pull, according to the locals. Something dark and unearthly like a siren song, sweet and somehow terrible. It draws folks of a certain intent. That's the polite way to say a lot of people end up crushed on the rocks below. Their limbs torn apart by the unending rush of water, the brains that made them who they were. Nothing more than bits of foam and meat floating to the surface. 20, 40 a year, in fact, depending on who you ask. We were happy, weren't we? I thought we were. I thought maybe we were different from everyone else, that we'd actually make it. We wouldn't end up in that 50% statistic. We'd grow old together, laughing at the same stupid jokes, knowing what was going to come out of the other's mouth before they even had a chance to say it. Was it the pressure of the wedding? The fact that I'm still between jobs? Young 20-somethings in one of America's bleakest economies, doing what we could to get by. Scrambling for every scrap as the magazine covers reminded us how worthless our generation is. The snide remarks about our smartphones and Facebook and selfies. Maybe getting married wasn't a good idea, but we were in love. We were in love, and we knew deep down in that secret place in our stomachs that she was the one for me and I for her. So then why did it happen? No, I'm not supposed to ask that anymore. That's what my therapist says. I'm supposed to accept that she's gone. I'm supposed to accept the fact that she's her own statistic now, one of 20, 40 people a year. Another tumble of bones on the body count that's reached over 5,000 since the falls became an attraction, both for tourists and people with death on their mind. But it's hard to accept when I can still see her face so clearly. That sweet face with the little crescent moon scar on her left nostril. The way her big blue eyes lit up when she showed me the fantastic deal she scored on Groupon. A Niagara Falls getaway for our honeymoon. If only I could go back. Tell her that the price was nice, but I'd rather go to a beach. Or Ireland, it doesn't matter. Anywhere but those cursed falls. It's impossible to describe how it feels to stand at the crest of Niagara, the mist peppering your face like cold little kisses, drinking in the smells and the sound, and the remarkable way the water rushes down, down, ever down. Your existence seems like a cosmic joke in comparison to this almost hauntingly beautiful feat of nature. For a moment it is. The locals say you can tell who has a death wish by how close they'll get to the edge. Those who shy away, who shake their heads and insist nervously that they can see just fine from where they are, thank you very much. Those are the ones who can't trust themselves to get too close. If they get too close to the edge, some little part of them knows they'll jump. She didn't shy away. She went right up to the railing. She was smiling. That's the worst part, she was smiling. It was early in the morning, one of those damp gray dawns only possible in the new spring of upstate New York. We had the site to ourselves. It was a little spooky being out there alone. The kind of spooky you get from being in an empty shopping mall after hours. All those metal gates pulled down and the lights turned off. She was standing there, a little too high on the guardrail, leaning just a little too far over. smiling as the mist touched her lips and made her hair curl in damp tendrils on her cheeks. She was beautiful. I'll never know why I pushed her. That's something I have to accept. I've been in the hospital for days, but the doctors don't know what's wrong with me or my mom. I used to get sick all the time when I was a kid. Nothing major, just your usual stuff. Little fevers, stomach aches, that kind of thing. But my mama couldn't bear to see me so miserable. So whenever I was sick, she would tell me my favorite story. This story. Once upon a time, there was a little glass princess. Her hands were glass, her feet were glass, the tip of her nose and the tips of her toes were all glass. She sparkled in the light when she danced. She was the most beautiful princess in the whole world. But glass is fragile. It cracks and it breaks, so the little princess couldn't live in the outside like the rest of the world. Instead, she lived in a snow globe and spent her days twirling in the silvery flakes. One day she became curious about the world outside her glass chamber. She wanted to breathe the fresh air, to feel the grass under her cold feet. So she escaped her snow globe and went in search of great adventures. But the little glass princess didn't know about the dangers of the world. No sooner than she left her globe, she slipped and fell from a great height, shattering into pieces on the hardwood floor beneath. And the little glass princess was no more. I can't explain why I liked that story so much. It's a sad story, no doubt. But I was always fascinated by the glass princess. I like to imagine her pirouetting in the snow, the light gleaming in shattered beams through her glass skin. How beautiful she must have looked. My mama was not a terrible woman or a monster. She didn't hurt me. There are no scars on my body, no mars to my flesh. She always held me as something precious to be treated with extreme delicacy and tenderness. It was her love for me, though that's not what the doctors say. But what can doctors know? Since I was brought here, they've done nothing. They only look at me with sadness and pity and all kinds of ugly emotions in their eyes. They don't love me. Only Mama loved me. I still remember the day she didn't come to see me. Mama had never done that before. I would have gone looking for her, but how could I? I don't leave my room. Well, I didn't anyway. Before this whole mess started, my room was my life, and it was a good life. It had no windows, but it was always bright. Mama had filled the room with lamps and lights of all different kinds. She liked the light, and I did too. Of course, it always seemed brighter when she was in the room with me. That first day she didn't come, I was sad. The second day, I cried. The third day, there was a knock on my door, and the doctors came to take me away. I miss Mama. The doctors want me to write about what it was like living with Mama. What we liked to do together, our favorite foods, our favorite songs. They say that if I do a good job, they'll let me see her. But I know that's not true. My time with Mama was special. Some days she spent hours with me. Some days we only had a few minutes together. But every moment was precious to us. She liked to sing to me. Strange songs I didn't understand about ghosts and love. They were good songs. She liked to brush my hair too. I have long blonde hair, and sometimes we would sit for hours as she brushed it. Always gentle. Sometimes, though, Mama would go to her away place and forget what she was doing. Once, she brushed out half my hair before she remembered to stop. Sometimes Mama would get real sick. She'd get pale and tired, and her belly would swell up big and round. Once I asked her what was wrong. She said there was a ghost in her stomach, wailing and clawing and trying to get out. I was scared, but she told me it was okay. She told me it would leave and then she'd be happy again. She was right, of course. Mama was always right. One day she'd come back and the swelling would be all gone. She'd be happy then and say that the ghost had run away. To celebrate, she'd make all my favorite foods. We'd have spaghetti and meatballs and hamburgers and lasagna. Mama was the best cook around. I wonder if Mama can still cook in heaven. They think I don't hear them, but I do. The night they brought me in, they told me Mama would be coming to see me in a few days. But after they thought I was asleep, the nurses started whispering. They said things like smell and hanging and tongue and dead. Mama isn't coming to see me. Sometimes I pretend to be asleep when the doctors come in. They say things like sick and unstable and sad. Jokes on them, because I already know I'm sick. Before Mama let them take me away, I started getting sick. Sometimes I can't stop from shaking. I get bad headaches and soreness all over my body. Sometimes my arms are so stiff they're hard to bend. It made Mama sad and scared. Maybe that's why Mama left. Yesterday, the doctors asked about my brothers and sisters. I don't have any, I said. They told me Mama had other children, but they couldn't find them. I told them they were wrong. I'm Mama's only little girl. That made them scared. They used the word pregnant a lot, but I don't know what that means. Thinking of Mama having other children made me jealous. Mama is mine. I wish she'd come back for me. I'm getting sicker. I wish Mama were here to tell me my story. I asked the doctors to tell the story of the glass princess, but they said they don't know it. Oh well, they couldn't tell it half as well as Mama anyway. It's hard to write this now, the way my hands shake. The doctors told me that I'm not getting better. They use the word comfortable a lot. They want me to be comfortable. Last night, I heard them talking again. I stayed very still, so they didn't know I was awake listening. They said flesh and eat and kuru. I wonder what that means. They say I'll see Mama soon. I think I will too. Maybe then she can tell me the story. I just want to be Mama's glass princess again. Thanks for listening to this stories to the end. Every Wednesday and Sunday, Flashes of Memory publishes a new story.